The twin suns of Cora Prime burned like fire in the sky, turning the red desert into a furnace. Heat waves shimmered across the endless dunes, and the air smelled like dust and iron. Nothing moved, no wind, no sound, no sign of life. Only a lone human figure walked through the vast emptiness, his boots sinking into the hot sand. Captain Daniel Reeves had been walking for hours. His helmet display blinked red, oxygen low, hydration level critical. His shuttle had crashed during a plasma storm. The ship was gone, communications dead, and there was no sign of rescue. He looked around the endless desert and whispered to himself, "Well, this is how heroes die, in the middle of nowhere." Daniel was a soldier once, strong, determined, and proud. But after the human Zerath War ended, he became a peacekeeper, sent to explore and rebuild old colonies. Cora Prime was one of those worlds, a planet where humans once traded peacefully with the Zerath, an alien race of tall, silver-skinned people with luminous eyes. But that peace ended long ago. Now humans were not welcome here. Daniel knew that if he was found by the locals, they wouldn't help him. They would likely kill him. But without water, he would die anyway. He adjusted his visor and kept walking. The heat pressed against his body armor. His vision blurred. Every step felt heavier. He thought about Earth, about rain, rivers, and the sound of leaves in the wind. He had never realized how much he missed those small things until now. Then, he heard something. At first, he thought it was the wind, a trick of his mind. But it came again. A sound faint and broken. "Please, help her." Daniel froze. He turned, scanning the horizon. The voice was small, fragile, almost drowned by the hot wind. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing. No answer. He waited. Then he heard it again, closer this time. "Please, help my mommy." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He climbed a nearby dune, struggling against the loose sand, and reached the top. His eyes widened. Down below stood a small figure trembling under the twin suns. It was a child, not human, but alien. Her skin shimmered faintly silver, her eyes glowing deep blue. She was thin, barefoot, her clothes torn. She looked half-starved, half burned by the heat. The moment she saw him, she flinched back in fear. Daniel raised his hands slowly. Hey, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The little girl stared at him, her lower lip trembling. "You, human?" "Yes," he said softly. "My ship crashed. I just need some water. I won't hurt you." She blinked, then took a hesitant step forward, clutching a cracked water flask in her hands. She handed it to him without a word. Daniel hesitated. She was a child, and this was all she had. "I can't take your water," he said. Her voice broke. "Please, my mommy needs help. She's tied to a rock. She can't move." Daniel stared at her, not sure he heard right. "Tied to a rock?" The girl nodded quickly, tears welling in her large blue eyes. "They tied her there, under the suns." "She's dying." Daniel's body tensed. "Who did this?" "The elders," she whispered. "They said she broke the law. She gave food to a human last year." He froze. "A human? Here?" That couldn't be. Humans hadn't been to this planet in decades. But if it was true, then this woman, this alien mother, was being punished for showing kindness to someone like him. The girl tugged on his hand. "Please, come. She will die soon." Daniel looked at the empty horizon. He knew what it meant if he went with her. The Zerath people hated humans. If they caught him helping one of their prisoners, they'd kill him instantly. But the child's voice, small and desperate, hit him deep inside. He had lost many things in the war, but not his humanity. He took a deep breath and knelt down to her level. "All right, take me to your mother." The little girl's eyes widened in disbelief. "You will help her?" Daniel nodded. "I'll do what I can." She smiled for the first time, a fragile, heartbreaking smile, and led the way. They walked through the dunes for almost an hour. The suns grew hotter, the air shimmering like molten glass. The girl moved quickly, used to the terrain, while Daniel struggled under his heavy armor. His throat burned. His vision blurred. "How far is it?" he asked, panting. "Not far," she said. "Just over that ridge." When they reached the top, Daniel stopped cold. At the base of the ridge lay a black stone, shaped like an altar. And tied to it, arms spread wide, skin blistered and cracked, was a woman. She was tall, silver-skinned like her daughter, but her body was weak, trembling under the suns. The ropes had cut deep into her wrists and ankles. Her lips were dry, her eyes half closed. She looked like she hadn't moved in days. The little girl ran forward, crying out, "Mommy, Mommy." The woman stirred slightly, her head lifting just enough to see her daughter. "Lyra," she whispered weakly. "You shouldn't be here." Daniel rushed forward and dropped to one knee beside her. "Don't talk. We'll get you out of this." The woman's eyes opened fully and widened in shock. Human?" Daniel met her gaze. "Your daughter found me. She said you needed help." "You can't be here," the woman rasped. "If the guards see you, then we'll both die," Daniel interrupted. "But I'm not leaving you like this." He pulled out his utility knife and began cutting at the thick ropes. The material was strange, woven plant fibers but strong as steel. The blade struggled to cut through. Lyra knelt beside her mother, holding her hand. "Mommy, he's helping." The woman tried to smile, but tears rolled down her cracked cheeks. "You shouldn't have come back, my little light." Daniel gritted his teeth and sliced through one of the ropes. "Almost there," he muttered. Then in the distance he heard something, a low metallic hum. He turned his head sharply. Over the dunes, 3 dark figures appeared, riding hover sleds that glowed with blue energy. "Guards," the woman whispered. "Run!" Daniel's instincts flared. He scanned the terrain. There was nowhere to hide, only open desert. The sleds were closing in fast. He cut the second rope. "Not leaving you," he growled. "Please," she begged. "If they see you helping me, they'll kill you too." Daniel looked at her and said, "Then they'll have to catch me first." He slashed through the 3rd rope, then the 4th. The woman collapsed into his arms, too weak to stand. Her skin was burning hot. He grabbed her and hoisted her over his shoulder. "Lyra!" he called. "Stay close to me." The little girl nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Blaster bolts cut through the air, exploding sand around them. Daniel ducked behind the black stone, shielding the girl and her mother. He drew his plasma pistol, a relic from the old wars, and fired 2 quick shots. The first missed. The second hit one of the riders, sending him spinning off his sled. The other 2 shouted in their alien tongue, circling closer. Daniel fired again, hitting another sled's engine. It exploded, throwing sand and metal everywhere. The last guard stopped at a distance, raising a long staff that glowed at the tip. A beam of white light shot out, striking the ground near Daniel's feet. The sand turned to glass instantly. "Go!" Daniel shouted. He grabbed Lyra's hand and ran toward a nearby canyon. The alien woman clung weakly to his shoulder. The surviving guard followed, his sled roaring across the sand. They reached the edge of the canyon just as Daniel's weapon overheated. He cursed under his breath and jumped down into the rocky shadows below. The sled couldn't follow through the narrow pass. For a moment, everything was silent except for their heavy breathing. Lyra clung to her mother, sobbing softly. Daniel looked at the woman, her breathing shallow, her pulse faint. He tore a strip of cloth from his sleeve and poured his last drops of water on it, pressing it gently to her lips. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Why did you help us, human?" Daniel hesitated. He didn't have an easy answer. "Because your daughter asked me," he said finally. "And because no one deserves to die like that." A faint smile touched her lips before she lost consciousness. Daniel sat back exhausted, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The sky turned deep crimson. Shadows stretched long across the canyon floor. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe more guards, maybe death. But as he looked at the little girl holding her mother's hand, he knew one thing. He had made the right choice. Somewhere far away, deep in the dunes, the echo of alien horns began to sound. They were coming, and this was only the beginning. The canyon air was cooler than the desert above, yet danger still echoed from the dunes. The deep hum of the alien hover sleds faded slowly, but Daniel knew the silence wouldn't last. The Zerath sentinels would not stop until they found the human who had broken their sacred punishment. Daniel crouched beside the alien woman he had just rescued. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale beneath the silver light of the twin moons. The small girl, Lyra, sat close to her mother, clutching her hand tightly. "Will she be okay?" the child whispered. Daniel looked at her, unsure what to say. "She needs water. And shade. We'll have to move soon." The canyon stretched deep and narrow, its walls glowing faintly from the mineral dust. Daniel checked his wrist beacon. No signal, no way to call for help. He sighed, pressing a button on his armor's power cell. A small lamp flickered to life, spreading weak light across the rocky floor. He took out the last ration bar from his pocket and broke it in half. handing one piece to Lyra. "For you," he said. The girl shook her head. "You're human. You need food too." Daniel smiled faintly. "We share. That's how humans survive." Lyra hesitated, then took the piece. "Thank you," they both chewed quietly. Above them, wind hissed through the canyon mouth. Daniel kept watching the sky. Every sound, every shadow made his heart race. After some time, the woman stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, reflecting the faint blue light. Where am I?" she murmured. Daniel leaned forward. "Safe for now. You fainted after I cut you free." Her gaze focused on him. "You shouldn't have done that." "Yeah, I've heard that before," he replied dryly. "But your daughter begged me to help. I couldn't just walk away." The woman tried to sit up, but pain rippled through her body. Her wrists were bleeding from the rope burns. Daniel gently wrapped them with bandages torn from his uniform. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. "My name is Sarah." "Sarah," he repeated. "I'm Daniel," her voice trembled. "Do you know what they'll do when they find you? You saved a marked one. You've broken our law." "I've broken worse laws before," Daniel said, trying to keep it light though his stomach twisted. Sarah's eyes softened for a moment. "You humans, always reckless, maybe," Daniel said. "But sometimes reckless is all that's left." She closed her eyes again, exhausted. Lyra looked at him, tears forming again. "Can you fix her, Daniel?" "I'm not a doctor," he admitted. "But I'll try." He checked his med kit, just one stim injector left. It could stabilize her, but if she had alien biology, the reaction might be different. He hesitated, then looked at the fading pulse on his wrist monitor. "She wouldn't last till morning. Hold on," he whispered. He pressed the injector against her arm. The fluid hissed softly. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then Sarah gasped sharply, her chest rising. The faint color returned to her face. Lyra gasped. "It's working." Daniel smiled. "Told you I'd try." Hours passed. The canyon grew colder as night deepened. Daniel kept a small fire going using scrap from his crashed shuttle pack. The three of them huddled close. Sarah sat weakly against the wall, her hand resting on her daughter's hair. "When the elders see you're gone, they'll send hunters," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "I know. They won't stop until they find us. They fear anyone who helps humans. They think kindness is weakness." He poked the fire with a stick. "That's usually how tyrants think." Sarah studied him for a moment. "You speak as if you fought them before." "I fought everyone before," he said, half smiling. "Humans, aliens, doesn't matter. War makes monsters out of all of us." Lyra listened silently, her wide eyes reflecting the flames. "Why did they punish you?" Daniel asked. Sarah lowered her gaze. "Because I helped a man, a human pilot who crashed years ago. I hit him, gave him food, healed his wounds. When the council found out, they said I betrayed my people. They killed him and tied me to that rock to die slowly under the suns." Daniel froze. "A human pilot?" "Yes, his name was Daniel too." His chest tightened. "Daniel Reeves, Sr.? My father." Sarah looked at him in shock. "Your father?" Daniel nodded slowly. "He disappeared here during the last year of the war. Command said his ship was destroyed, but he must have crash-landed on Cora Prime." Sarah's voice broke. "He was kind. He said he had a son waiting for him back on Earth." Daniel swallowed hard, the memories flooding back. His father's last transmission, static, then silence. For years he'd blamed himself for not being there, and now sitting beside this dying alien woman, he learned that his father hadn't died alone. "He saved me once," Sarah whispered, "and I couldn't let him die. When the soldiers came, he told me to run, but I stayed." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "You risked your life for him." She nodded weakly. "He gave me hope that humans in Zerath could live without hate. That's why they punished me. They wanted to erase his memory." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then they failed. Because I'm here." For a moment, silence filled the canyon, soft wind, flickering fire, and the sound of two worlds finding peace for a heartbeat. Before dawn, Daniel heard it again, the deep hum of engines. He climbed up a ridge and looked toward the desert. In the distance, a line of lights moved across the dunes. The hunters were coming. He slid down quickly. "They've found us. We have to move." Sarah tried to stand but stumbled. Daniel caught her. "You can't walk far," he said. "Lyra, help me pack." The girl nodded, stuffing the remaining supplies into a small bag. Daniel extinguished the fire and helped Sierra onto his back. Her body was lighter than he expected, frail, weakened by days under the suns. They moved deeper into the canyon, following a path that led toward the ruins of an ancient human outpost. The structures were broken and half buried in sand, but maybe there would be shelter or even a working transmitter. When they reached the ruins, Daniel set Sarah down gently against a wall. He scanned the area with his wrist beacon, faint power readings. "There might be a signal generator inside," he said. "If I can fix it, we can call for help." He forced open a metal door and stepped into the darkness. Inside, the air smelled of rust and old oil. He found a dusty control panel and began working. Sparks flew. Lights flickered. Outside, Lyra sat beside her mother. "Mommy," she said softly, "will we ever go home again?" Sarah looked at her daughter's innocent face. "Home is where someone cares for you," she said. "Right now, that's with him." The girl smiled faintly. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the ruins. Daniel rushed back. "They're here!" A red flare exploded in the sky. The hunters had found their trail. Daniel peeked through a crack, 4 hover sleds approaching fast. He grabbed his plasma pistol and loaded the last energy cell. "Lyra, get behind that wall." "Don't move," Sarah tried to protest. "You can't fight them all." Daniel smirked. "You sound like my commanding officer." He ran outside, crouched behind a broken wall, and fired as the first sled came into view. The blast hit the front engine, spinning it out of control. The second sled returned fire, plasma bolts scorching the sand near his feet. Daniel rolled aside, firing back, hitting another rider in the shoulder. The air filled with light and thunder. Lyra covered her ears, crying. Sarah crawled closer, trying to shield her daughter. Daniel ducked behind cover, panting. His armor was cracked, his weapon overheating. "One more shot," he muttered. He aimed carefully at the canyon entrance where the last 2 hunters were circling. Then he saw something. A tall figure standing on the ridge above them, glowing faintly blue. It was Sarah. "Sarah! Stay down!" he shouted. But she raised her hands, eyes blazing with silver fire. Energy crackled between her fingers. A deep hum filled the air. The ground trembled as she unleashed a shockwave of light. The sleds exploded in midair, thrown back like leaves in a storm. The blast lit up the entire canyon, sending dust and rocks flying. When the light faded, Sarah collapsed to her knees. Daniel rushed to her, catching her before she fell. "What did you do?" he asked, terrified. She smiled weakly. "An old power. Something my kind buried long ago. It uses life force." "You shouldn't have," Daniel said. "You'll burn yourself out." She looked at him, tears mixing with dust. "I couldn't let them take you, not you. Not after what your father meant to me." Her body trembled violently. Daniel held her close, whispering, "You're going to be fine." But deep down, he knew she wouldn't. Lyra ran to her mother, crying, "Mommy, please wake up." Sarah touched her daughter's cheek. "Don't cry, my little light. You'll live. You'll see the stars again." Her hand fell limp. Daniel sat there, frozen, his heart breaking under the weight of 2 worlds' cruelty. He looked up at the sky, the twin suns rising again, casting golden light over the ruins. He swore silently, "I'll keep her safe, I promise." And as the wind swept through the canyon, it carried a soft whisper, a voice he thought he heard in the breeze. "Thank you, human." The twin suns of Cora Prime were just rising again, painting the sky in orange and gold. The desert winds had calmed, but inside the narrow canyon the world felt heavy, quiet and broken. Daniel Reeves knelt beside Sarah's still body, his hands trembling. Her skin had lost its glow, her breath was gone. The woman who had saved his father's life had just given up her own to save his. The silence was unbearable. Beside him, Lyra was crying softly, clutching her mother's cold hand. "Mommy, please wake up," she whispered again and again, her voice cracking. Daniel's throat burned. He wanted to speak, but no words came. The weight of what happened, of everything, crushed his chest. After a long time, he finally whispered, "She's gone, Lyra." The little girl looked up, tears streaking her silver cheeks. No, she promised me she'd stay." Daniel took a deep breath. He gently placed his hand on the child's shoulder. "She kept her promise, Lyra. She stayed until she knew you were safe." Lyra broke down, pressing her face into his chest. Daniel held her tightly, his eyes staring at the rising suns. The light felt cruel, too bright for such loss. He stayed like that for hours, silent and unmoving. The wind howled softly through the canyon walls, whispering in a language only the heart could understand. When the first heat returned to the air, Daniel stood slowly. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll come again." Lyra wiped her tears. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere safe," he replied. "And before that, we bury her properly." A mother's rest. Daniel found a spot at the base of a tall stone ridge where the sun met the shadow. He dug into the sand with his hands, each scoop heavy with grief. Lyra helped silently, her small fingers trembling but determined. They worked for hours until the grave was deep enough. Then Daniel lifted Sarah's body gently and laid her down. Her face was calm now, peaceful, as if the pain of her punishment had finally ended. Lyra placed a small piece of crystal beside her mother's hand. "It's from our home," she whispered. She loved this stone. It shines when the moons come. Daniel placed a small silver tag beside it, his father's old dog tag that he had worn for years. He pressed it into the sand beside Sarah's palm. "She saved my father," he said quietly, "and she saved me. She deserves to be remembered." Together they covered the grave with sand and stones. When they finished, Daniel carved two symbols on the largest rock nearby. One human, one Zerath, two worlds, side by side. As he finished, a warm gust of wind swept across the canyon. The sand swirled gently, almost like a sigh. Lyra gasped softly. "Did you hear that?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I did." It sounded like a whisper, soft, distant, and full of peace. "Thank you, human." The journey after the burial, Daniel packed what little they had left. Half a ration bar, one flask of water, and a broken transmitter. Lyra walked beside him, holding his hand. "Where will we go now?" she asked quietly. Daniel looked at the horizon. "There's an old human station about 50 miles east. If we're lucky, the power cells might still work. Maybe we can send a signal." The girl nodded but said nothing. The heat was rising fast again. They walked through the dunes in silence, their shadows stretching long behind them. Hours passed. Daniel's boots sank deeper into the sand with every step. His armor was scorched, his throat dry, but every time he thought about stopping, he looked down at the small hand gripping his. He couldn't let her down. By evening, the horizon shimmered with faint light, tall towers half buried in dust. The ruins of Outpost Theta, once a human research base before the war. Daniel's heart lifted. "We made it." They entered the ruins carefully. Most of the doors were broken, the walls covered in alien markings. Inside, the air was cooler. Lyra looked around wide-eyed. "Is this where your people lived?" Daniel nodded. "A long time ago." He found a console near the back wall, still faintly glowing. He brushed off the dust and tried to power it on. Sparks flew and the screen flickered to life for a few seconds before dying again. "Come on," he muttered, tapping it. He tried rerouting power from an old generator, but the cables were corroded. He needed a new energy core. Then Lyra tugged at his sleeve. "I think I saw something glowing back there." They followed the faint light to a storage chamber. Inside, under a pile of sand and debris, lay a half-broken droid with a still-functioning fusion core. Daniel grinned. "You've got sharp eyes, kid." He removed the core carefully and installed it into the console. The lights flickered and finally the system booted up. Transmission network, active. He almost couldn't believe it. He typed quickly. "Human distress call. Survivor identified, Captain Daniel Reeves. Crash on Cora Prime. Request immediate extraction." A short pause, then the console beeped. "Signal weak. Relayed to nearby listening post. Response. Estimated 12 hours. Daniel exhaled with relief. "We did it." Lyra looked up. "So, they'll come for us?" "Yes," Daniel said. "They'll come." For the first time since the desert, Lyra smiled. The hunter's return night fell again. The twin moons rose, casting silver light through the broken windows. Daniel kept watch near the door while Lyra slept beside the console, but peace never lasted long on Cora Prime. Just before dawn, a sound reached his ears, the distant thrum of engines. He looked out and saw glowing lights moving across the dunes again. "No," he whispered, "not again." The hunters had found them. Daniel shook Lyra awake. We have to move. But the ship? They'll get the signal even if we leave, he said. Come on. They ran through the ruins, Daniel clutching his plasma pistol, Lyra close behind. Blaster bolts exploded behind them, lighting up the halls. He ducked behind a fallen pillar and returned fire, hitting one of the pursuers. But there were too many this time. He turned to Lyra. When I say run, you head to that tower. Hide and don't come out until I call. Tears filled her eyes. But I promised your mother, he said. And I don't break promises. He gave her a firm nod. Now go! Lyra ran, her small form vanishing into the shadows. Daniel turned back, firing at the advancing hunters. He moved fast, using every bit of cover. 2 fell, but a third managed to shoot him in the shoulder. The blast threw him against the wall. Pain burned through his arm, but he gritted his teeth and stood again. He had been through worse. Come on, he shouted at the attackers. You want me? Come get me. As they charged, something unexpected happened. A deep rumble from beneath the ruins. The ground cracked open and blue energy pulsed through the walls. Daniel looked around in shock. What the? It was Sarah's energy, the same power she had unleashed before. It had awakened something buried beneath the station. The hunters froze, looking terrified. The floor began to glow. A sudden surge of light erupted, swallowing the entire area in a shockwave. The blast knocked everyone to the ground. When Daniel opened his eyes, the hunters were gone, disintegrated or fled. The ruins fell silent again. Only the faint hum of the console remained. Rescue hours later, as the suns climbed once more, a shadow fell across the desert, a human dropship descending from the sky. Daniel and Lyra stood outside the ruins, shielding their eyes as the engines roared. The hatch opened and 2 soldiers ran out, weapons ready. Captain Reeves? One shouted. Daniel nodded weakly. Yeah, that's me. They rushed forward, scanning him. We got your distress call. You're lucky we picked it up. Signal was almost gone. Daniel gestured to Lyra. She's coming with me. The soldier hesitated. Sir, she's not human. She's my responsibility, Daniel said firmly. She's the daughter of the woman who saved my father's life. If she doesn't come, I stay. The soldiers exchanged glances, then nodded. Understood, sir. They boarded the ship together. As the hatch closed, Lyra looked out the window one last time. The desert stretched endlessly below, the twin suns shining on the ridge where her mother now rested. Daniel followed her gaze and whispered, Goodbye, Sarah. You'll never be forgotten. Epilogue. Years later. The stars glimmered outside the viewing window of orbital station Eden, where humans and Zirath had finally signed a peace treaty. Among the guests sat a grown girl with silver skin and bright blue eyes, Lyra Reeves. Beside her stood Daniel, older now, scars across his face but a proud smile on his lips. The ambassador on stage said, Today marks a new beginning for both our species, a future built not on fear, but on compassion. Daniel looked at Lyra. Your mother started this, you know. Lyra smiled softly. She believed kindness was stronger than hate. He nodded. She was right. Outside the window, the twin suns of Cora Prime glowed in the distance, no longer a place of war, but of memory. Daniel placed his hand on the glass, whispering quietly, Rest easy, Sarah. Your light still guides us. And somewhere across the stars, a soft voice seemed to echo in the silence. Thank you, human. Thank you.